of Teenagers, Toddlers, and Twins. I'm here with John Anthony, who seems to be my reoccurring and only guest at the moment, but that's okay because we have good conversations. But how are you, John?
I'm doing good. And yourself?
I'm well, thank you. So, if you're listening, I usually start off by telling everybody that I have not told John what I plan to talk about tonight or today. And it usually, not usually, it always works out pretty well. He has some good insight. We have a good conversation, and I plan on doing that tonight. So, should we just jump right into it, John?
Let's go for it.
So, lots going on in the world, right? And a lot of things going on with COVID and the vaccine and Omicron. Is that the new variant? If I'm saying it correctly.
Omicron, yeah.
Yeah. And let me start off by saying, everybody, I don't intend to make this any sort of political episode. That's not where I like to go with things. I like to try to to stay in the middle. But John, I know that I know that but to maybe you can explain to other people, or they'll just get the idea from what we're talking about. You, like many others, have and probably still are very cautious in regards to COVID, correct? Even getting vaccinated and still taking some social distancing measures, among other things.
Yes. We have a daughter that's immune compromised, and she only has the first shot, and she'll get all of my kids will get the second shot next week. And but we're still being cautious because with the Omicron, so we wear a mask. We don't go indoors, with lots of people. That's just the way we choose. I mean, they go to school, but yeah, we 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 do that.
Yeah, no, that's all. That's good. I'm having some technical. I just having trouble. Yeah, it might be your earphones. I didn't have any issues until you put them in. How about you try saying hi now?
Hi now. Is it still a
It's a
problem?
little delayed. You're. It's a little delayed. That's all. Like you're. It comes after the dialogue comes after.
Hey, let me try a different earbud that I've used in the past. These are new, so I'll disconnect them.
It's all good.
And then we'll hook these up.
Now you're better. Before you were like talking and your words were coming afterwards.
Okay. All right. So this one
You,
works.
you set?
I'm set.
Okay. You're you're still delayed. You're still delayed. Do you need the earpiece, or you just like to have it?
Well, I thought it was better for us. I'll take it out, and then we'll go like this.
Sorry. No, it's all good. It's all good. You good now?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
Everything
good. Yeah.
one time.
Yeah. Now it seems lined up. So we'll take it from the top, ladies and gentlemen. So John, just going back, I'll edit out that part. So you're just explaining your why for the circumstances you take, and that got cut off in the beginning. So just so you can explain to everybody again, because I'm sure there's people that can relate to the immune compromise that your daughter that you have to be
Yeah. Yeah. We have a daughter that's immune compromised, and so we take caution. And she's had the first shot, um, you know, and then they all get their second shot next week. But we're still taking it. We're being cautious, and so we don't go to restaurants indoors. We order it out if we want something, and we try to stay away from enclosed places where there's lots of people.
Yeah, no, I definitely get that. And like I said, I'm sure there's plenty of people that can relate. And just so everybody's aware, and like I said, I don't want to make it political, but I think maybe it helps to say, and hopefully brings comfort to those of you that are listening. My wife is vaccinated. I am vaccinated, so we're not anti-vaxxers or anything of that nature. And my wife and I are at the whatever anybody decides to do is your choice, and that's just where we're at with it. Whatever your beliefs on the matter may be, those are yours to have, and we respect them. But John, the reason I'm asking you this, or the reason I wanted to talk to you about it, is because I know that you, like I said, have taken the steps. You are taking the steps, and it's what is it going to be? It's going to be like 2 years now, almost, with the since the pandemic started, since it was first discovered, like the end of 2019, right?
Yeah, yeah, we just found out about it, and then everybody went into, lockdown in March.
Yeah.
So it'll be
So
2 years in March.
yeah,
Everybody's hiding out.
yeah, 2 years in March, crazy, like the longest, fastest 2 years ever. I don't know where the time went. But I'm gonna ask both sides, okay? Both sides. So I saw today that, well, yesterday and today, combined both days, that the mandates that Biden tried to put into place regarding the vaccine being mandatory for federal contractors, which just so people understand, and John, maybe you can give some insight in this as well. The federal contractors aren't like contractors, like construction people. I'm sure there might be some of them in there, but it's Lockheed Martin, right? People that the government does business with that are contracted. It was going to extend to some of those people or all of them, and that's been blocked. And there's a couple other states that are blocking it as well. So, John, feel free to give where you are at this moment with things like that kind of being put on hold and maybe not coming full circle in general, and what you would tell to people who are starting to get lost in their fears that there was this decision made and it seemed like everything was kind of going to fall into place, but now there's Omicron and mandates and things that were trying to be put into place are getting blocked. And I'm sure people on that end of the spectrum are starting to build up some anxieties and get nervous. So where are you at, and what advice would you give to those people to, I mean, power through whatever the next stage is, whatever that may be?
Well, whatever we're thinking is going to cause us feelings. And, it comes down to, looking at the facts. I mean, everybody has been vaccinated, or else you wouldn't have been in school. So we've already had vaccines, you know, since we were little kids. And, the Army has 9 mandatory vaccines, and then I think it's 16 others, depending on what part of the world you're going to be stationed in. So I think that, you know, there's a lot of bad information that's going around, and people have taken sides, and one side thinks the other one has the bad information, and vice versa. But, you know, whatever we're thinking is going to cause feelings and our attitude and our experience. And if we're thinking negative, fearful thoughts, we're going to have negative, fearful feelings, a negative, fearful attitude, and a negative, fearful experience, even if what we're thinking isn't true, regardless of which side you're on. And we don't realize that or take responsibility for that, as a culture. We think other people make us upset. No, it's what I think about what that person did. That's why I get upset. And we don't see the the importance of being responsible for what we're thinking. And so that's just from that standpoint. And then, when you believe things that aren't true, you're going to feel as though it is true because you believe it. And I'm not saying which side is the telling the truth and which side isn't. It really doesn't matter. You know, you're going to be feeling those feelings because that's what you believe. That's the way we're wired and the way that we're made. And so I think that's part of the dilemma is that like I said, there are people that have just really spread bad facts, and it started, with former President Trump, saying that he lost the election, because it was stolen from him. So, I don't really, want to get into the politics, but that's, he's the one who initiated the vaccine and got it to be done in record time. And now all of a sudden, he's the one who's saying, don't take the vaccine. So um,
But
it's a
yeah, but
problem.
yeah, politics. Like I said, politics aside, right? Politics aside, everything that's actually happening in the moment. Like I said, judges blocking mandates, they might not happen altogether, right? Things of that nature. But I guess like what advice would you give to people who are going to start getting lost in those fears? Because if it doesn't happen, then it doesn't happen, right? I mean, and this kind of goes to negative fantasies when we talk about these things, like, and that's why I really try to stay in the middle. Me personally, the only thing that I want to happen from a personal standpoint, right? A personal standpoint is I would love to stop having to wear my mask at work. I think maybe that's probably a little bit selfish, right? When I'm here in New Jersey, I can go in the convenience store and I don't have to wear a mask, but then I work in Center City, Philadelphia, and masks are required there. And the way anybody else wants to go about it, John, you included, I'm perfectly fine with it. But from what you've taught me, and then I'll even loop in, Jocko and extreme ownership, I have learned that I just don't want to let my mind go one way or the other with everything, if that makes sense. I want to be here in the now. I'll be very honest. I'm not somebody who would rally and do things like that. I just kind of want to be in the middle and want to let everything kind of take its course. So I guess maybe in a sense I might be conflicted there as well, but through this entire thing, I've done my best not to choose sides, if that makes sense.
Well, I hear that you're trying not to choose sides. Um, and not choosing sides is a choice. And there are going to be some people on your side of not choosing sides,
Yeah.
you know. So, you know,
What are you
I,
doing? How about that? What are you doing? Where are you at with if these things, being held up and they might not come full circle? And to anyone who's listening, I'm sorry, I don't keep saying like it's not going to come full circle, but I haven't even really had a chance to talk to anybody about this. You're the first one. So where are you at if it the process is slowed down, if that makes sense?
the process of vaccinating people.
Yeah.
Well, I believe in science and I trust the science. And the science says that the more people that get vaccinated, the less likely the COVID is to mutate into something that could become dangerous where the vaccines don't protect us. And I'm an older person, I've got you by a couple of years. And so I'm healthy. I exercise, I eat well, um, but I'm not going to push the envelope.
Hmm.
And so I got vaccinated. I didn't have any problems. Little soreness in my arm.
Yeah. Same
You
for
know,
me.
we're trying to schedule for the booster. Just because I'd rather be safe. That way because I believe in science.
Hmm.
And so that's where I am. And my kids, you know, are they're under they're 11 and 7 going on 8 at the end of this month. So we had to wait for them to you know get eligible, and then we signed them up, and we go for the second shot next week, and that's what we're doing. And
Yeah.
you know if other people don't want to do it, that's their choice. But it is interesting how the it seems like the people that are for Trump or against it now, and the ones who voted for Biden are for it. And you know, there's a study out that shows that for the counties around the country that went for Trump predominantly versus the counties that went for Biden predominantly, there's a 3-to-1 ratio of deaths in the Trump counties as opposed to the Biden counties. And that's just something that's, a fact. And so it's saying something.
Does it
And
change your mind when you see that, like, Australia and Europe and Canada, there's starting to be protests about the same topics as well? And again, I'm not trying to get political, but I'm just trying to say that it kind of like for me, that's why even more I'm kind of just like in the middle, like, oh my god, this entire world is going crazy, right? And I that like I said, not. I'm going day by day on what I need to do, if that makes sense, and then I kind of just read the paper or the news the next day and see where everything's at. But does that change anything for you at all?
no, because there's going to be people that are against things.
Sure, all
That's
the time,
been
right? I
throughout
think that's
history.
important to
Yeah,
remember, right?
and so that there are other people, and would I rather not wear a mask? You bet. But
Absolutely.
it's really, I wear the mask for other people because
Mhm.
it keeps, in case I had it, it keeps my germs from, going into the room. And, so, people do what they want to do. It's your life. You deal with it how you want. I choose to wear masks, even though I would, you know, like it if I didn't. And I choose to use the vaccine as a way of trying to give me an edge because the vaccine isn't supposed to stop you from getting the virus. It makes it less likely that you're going to end up in the hospital or in an ICU unit.
Mhm.
Um, so, so that's where I am. But I'm not going to tell people that they have to. You know, Personally, I'm glad that things are mandated, and New York City has a lot of mandates, and they went from being ground zero to one of the safer places to be. Um, so but see, the thing is with all of this is that people believe what they want to believe, and unfortunately, some people have already made up their minds, and they don't want to believe anything different, and and certainly based on what I've, looked at, the science and everything, I've made up my mind and I'm going to vaccinate.
But if
So
nothing changes,
I can't point fingers at other people because they've made up their minds just because they happen to be on the other side of what I've chosen to believe.
but if nothing changes, and these mandates don't go through, and here's I'm just gonna ask it clean cut. If these mandates don't go through, like I said, like the federal contractors and things like that, I'm pretty sure you're not going to let it ruin your day or life. Am I accurate?
Um, well, no, because I'm not going to fret over things that I can't control.
Right.
You know, I can control how I respond to them. I can't control what the events are that what other people and circumstances are doing. And so, the problem is that we're wanting other people to do what we want them to do, and when they don't, then we get frightened, and then we turn that fear to anger, and then we want to take it out on them or something else, and none of that is gonna help me. It's how we give our power away. Because we're trying to control people, places, and things that we can't control.
Wouldn't you love to see that happen? I've talked about this with my mom on her podcast, Talking to Mom. Like, don't you think? And I may catch grief for saying this. Don't you think that a lot of what's happened with this pandemic would be different if we all found some sort of common ground earlier, in the middle, and where we're at now? I mean, a conversation goes a long way, right? But even at the with that, we're trying not to get political, people, but it's kind of hard. You know, like in the I can't think of it. Congress, right? Congress. Even there, growing up, I watch all these movies and all these people are poised and mature and they all make decisions together and sometimes they disagree and Jack Ryan or the CIA or somebody intervenes, behind closed doors or behind the scenes and saves the world. But it's and not just this country, for those of you that are listening, every country, right? It's kind of like high school. And it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Everybody is putting gasoline on the fire, if that makes sense.
Well, we have a difference of opinion, as a country, as a world, and you say you don't want to get political, but yet you're asking questions that are directly influenced by politics.
I know, right?
They and I've been told from people that traveled to Europe that you know everybody somebody who went to Switzerland and
Hmm.
to see family, and everybody was wearing masks. I was told,
Hmm.
and they weren't. They were all on the same page. Um, and yeah, it would be nice if we all were on the same page, but people have different perspectives, and you know, see, the problem is that it's there's in the last 5 years there's been so much lies that have been told that people believe, and this is what's causing the problem. And you know, it's and people aren't willing to you know to have a dialogue about it because I said it's people's minds are made up.
Yeah.
But what I would like to say, as a ray of hope,
Yeah.
um, somewhat, you know, yesterday was the 80th anniversary of the bombing of Pearl Harbor,
Hmm.
and I was watching a show that talked about how prior to that our country was divided then
Hmm.
in the late 30s and all the way up in 41 until December 7th about should we enter the war, and whose side should we enter it on. There were many people that thought we shouldn't get involved, and there were many people that thought that we should go in on the side of you know England and France, and and we were split, and it was. But what put us all together was when Pearl Harbor got bombed, and then everybody said, we're in this. So things happen that unite us. It's just like in 2001, 9/11.
Hmm.
That united us. When we have hurricanes, and there's damage or floods, we get united. We don't say, wait a minute, I don't know if you can get my vote. Did you vote for the other guy or did you vote for my guy? You know, and so you know the what to bring in the tools and everything, we have to be aware of: are we coming from our fear, or are we coming from our love? Because we're going to help to create whichever we come from. And if we're having negative, fearful thoughts, we're going to create negative, fearful feelings, a negative, fearful experience. And if we're having positive, loving thoughts, we're going to create positive, loving feelings, a positive, loving attitude, and a positive, loving experience. And it depends on us. We help to create what our experience of life is. Life is what we make it. And when we see that, then we can have our power. And if we don't, then we give it away to what other people are doing, saying they made me think that, and then feel that, and then have that attitude, and then that experience.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. I read on a page once, was it this year or last year? It said, if we woke up and it was September 12th, 2001, everybody would be united. It's horrible to say, but it's true, like, right, without a doubt. And before, when September 11th happened, I remember my mom compared something of that magnitude to John F. Kennedy's assassination, to Pearl Harbor, right? Things that really stopped the world and our nation in particular in their tracks, right? Where we all got on the same page, right? And listen, something may happen again somewhere, probably will, right? Unfortunately. And for a couple months, a year, whatever the case may be, we will all be united again. Hopefully, it's never on the scale of September 11th again. But, it's unfortunately, it takes tragedy to unite people sometimes. I mean, we're probably kind of getting off topic here, but to your point, yeah, after those events took place, everybody was on the same page. And I always feel like people were on the same page when the pandemic started, but then it kind of kept going, and that's where everybody kind of got divided, if that makes sense. It was 2 weeks, and during the 2 weeks, Instagram had a little thing that said, "We're in this together," and everybody was being nice to each other and supporting one another. And people bring up how we had the law enforcement and firefighters drive by for our frontline healthcare workers and things like that, and then you know uh, then the vaccine became a mandate, and some medical workers didn't want to get it, and suddenly it was pointing fingers and this, that, and the other thing. It's just the last 2 years, you've seen how quickly people can flip the switch. And I was guilty for a long time. I would post things on Facebook, take them down because I thought to myself, and you and I talked about this before, that when I post on social media, if I share an article, to me, that's pushing hate back out into the world. Still to this day, I see things and read things, and I'm like, I would love to comment on this, right? Or give my insight. But I'm pushing it back out into the world, if that makes sense, right? Keep my
Right.
thoughts together, keep it to myself, kind of maybe talk about it with my wife, let it out somehow. You know what I mean? But uh yeah, especially social media, you really put the fuel in the fire. But I really
Well,
try to
see,
stay neutral with all that.
well, I appreciate that you're trying to stay neutral, being a good Libra that you are, trying to see both sides. I'm a Libra too, truth be told. Um, but see, it's really started before the COVID, with global warming.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
there's people that have said, that it ain't true. It's not. We keep using fossil fuels. Um, they seem to be the people that were making money using fossil fuels. Um, but the there's places that are dealing with flooding that never had it before. I listen to NPR a lot, and there was a piece that they had earlier today talking about St. Augustine, Florida, which is just south of Jacksonville. And there's a fort that was built in the late 1700s. And I went there as a 4-year-old, and I
Hmm.
haven't been there since. But the city of St. Augustine, at least once a month, when the tides are high, the full moon and everything, where the streets get flooded. And they talked about a well that that was built many years ago. I forget how long ago, um, but there were pictures of it in the 40s, 1940s, and there was a whole lot of land between it and the water's edge. Now the water comes right up to the well,
Hmm.
so the tide is rising, and there are places that are having more and more problems. And they said that if it keeps going like it is, it's going to be wearing away on the rock that the fort is made out of. This is a certain type of rock that is vulnerable to the water. And so, um, you know, things are happening. You look at the weather, you have more severe storms than, I ever had when I was a kid. And, so we'll either start to get together and work together, or we won't, and then we'll end up as a race to suffer the consequences.
And then
Because
well, then I was going to say, then we're going to be building boats together, right? So we'll get together at some point.
right, or or we'll be stealing boats from each other.
God, it's never gonna end. No, I shouldn't say it's never gonna end because that's being negative. But uh, yeah, I really wanted to just ask your opinion about, because, like I said, I'm somebody who, if I'm being 100% transparent when it comes to everything with COVID, this is as far as I go. W- Philadelphia mask mandate, hoping that there's some sort of date that was given, like on the news that like Mayor Kenny gave, and I'm just like, nope. But the rest of it, man, I can't let myself get dragged into it. I'm a passionate person, as my wife says, and I'm not very good at politics in the sense that, if I was having a discussion with somebody, they could shoot off names and cite cases, and I'm just not that guy, right? So I try not to talk about politics for that reason. But yeah, as we approach the 2-year mark and things are kind of just, for a lack of better term, stalling out, I just was wondering where you were at and if we could give some insight to people who and I want to be clear in saying I didn't bring this up to for anyone who may be on the other side saying like it's a win, it's a win. I don't want to say it's a win or it's a loss. I really don't, and I'm sure, John might disagree and a few others might because um, you want things to take formation, right? Mandates and things like that, which is fine. If that's where you're at, that's fine. Like I said, but for me, I'm still in the middle, and um, if this is where we're at, and this is where we're at, and next year rolls around, and people are kind of just like, listen, it's time to just live with it. We hear that term once in a while. I don't know where people are at. I don't want people to start freaking out and start getting angry if that's the direction we go. So I wanted to get your insight on it.
Yeah. Well, there used to be a saying, about, the people from Missouri, if they see it, then when they see it, then they'll believe it, you know. But it's really the opposite. When we believe it, we will see it. So it's
Mhm.
like whatever I believe, I'm going to see because I believe it. I'm going to look for it until I find it. So to get away from politics and just to become personal about people, if I think I'm not lovable, I'm going to find something that you do that proves to me that you think I'm not lovable. And I'm going to interpret it through that wound because deep down, I don't think I'm lovable. And how can I believe somebody else would think I'm lovable if I can't even see it for myself? So, you know, so what we end up doing is we think our partner doesn't love us. So we test our partner to see if they love us. And we draw, a line like where for the test. Well, if I believe that I'm not lovable and I give you a test and you pass the test, that's not going to change my mind and make me think I am lovable. It's going to make me think I just created a really crappy test. And so then I'm going to raise the bar of the test until you don't pass the test. And then I can say, see, I knew it. You think I'm not lovable too, because it's really what I believe. And this is a dynamic that goes on, for a lot of us, whether we think we're lovable or we think that we're not, we're going to see what we believe in our interactions with other people. And it's really because of our beliefs. Our beliefs are what determines what we see.
At like as somebody who used to play that game when I was very unstable mental health wise, you can make that worse for yourself, right? Like for example, Monica would be like, "All right, like I did it. You're right. Well, you did it because I asked you to do it, and you just keep it going. You know what I mean? Like you just don't
Right,
let it stop."
right. Yeah. Because I'm trying to prove what I believe, rather than looking at what's going on and making an assessment about that.
Yeah.
So, so that's also why it's so important for us to heal our past emotional wounds because we will interpret things through them, and you know, it's 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 really important that if we want to have love in our life, we're going to have to be the ones creating it for ourselves and for others. And if we want to have fear in our life, we have that choice too, and we can help create that. Because most people react to other people. They don't respond. Responding is where I look at my choices and then I pick the one that best suits my needs. Reacting is where I give back to other people what I think they're bringing to me. So we've talked about this before. If I say, "Hey, how are you?" You're more likely to going to say, "Hey, how are you?" But if I say, "Hey, what the hell do you want?" What the hell do you want? Because if I'm coming from my love, you're going to be more likely to respond from that love, or really you'll be reacting. And if I'm coming from my fear, then you're going to be more likely to react from your fear. Unless we happen to be a person who's going to be taking responsibility for what we're thinking and what we're doing and saying, no, I'm not going to go there. And there are people out there that do that, but they're not in the majority, in my experience.
John, on that note, I have a question for you.
Okay.
I want to know if I broke any. I know this is going to be a tough one for you. So, Jade was sick. She got sick at school on Monday, and I had to leave early to go get her, leave work early and go get her. Stayed home with her and the boys yesterday. And, I was home, right? Focused on Jade and the kids and trying to keep everybody healthy, keep myself self healthy as I could, right? Because we have kids running around and whatever the case may be. So I get to work today, and I hadn't had my coffee, and I was a little bit stressed about other things. And I know that coffee is not an excuse, but my mood was not stabilized, if that makes sense. And eh, somebody that I work with sent me a text. The table in your foyer needs to be wiped down. Did they mean this? Did they mean anything by it? Probably not. Were they micromanaging me? Well, they can't micromanage me because they're not my department head, right? So I'm saying these two factors for a reason. Because what I did was I went upstairs to his cubicle and I was like, I said this verbatim. Hey, man, I was just off for 2 days with a sick kid at home and my other kids. Give me a few minutes to get settled in. Thanks. And walked away. Right now, as I was walking away, I heard him say, "Oh no, I was just trying to help." In the grand scheme of things, I didn't need to do that. But did I break any rules? I'm just curious.
Well, you know me well enough. I'm going to ask you, do you think you broke any?
I don't think if we're going by the book I broke any, but I don't think it was necessary, if that makes sense.
Well, you see, as far as the agreements that you're talking about, it's about, being verbally, emotionally, or physically abusive to others or to ourselves, or violent to property and things like that. And, I'm glad that you agree with me. You didn't break any of those. But you see, what's the dynamic that was playing out? Well, in terms of the tools, what were you trying to get from that person when you went up there and explained what you explained?
Respect, understanding, pretty much all of "Are You a Cat?"
Exactly. You were trying to get their "Are you a cat?" And, gravy, remember, other people's "Are you a cat?" can only be gravy. We have to provide the meat and potatoes. And gravy, I love gravy, in my meals and, in my life, that emotional gravy when people give me "Are you a cat?" and I've cooked the meat and potatoes, you know, that's a tasty meal, you know. So there's nothing wrong or inherently wrong with that. The potential challenge would be is if they weren't able to give you any of that gravy and then you had an attitude about it. See, because then you're wanting them to respect you more than what they're doing, to understand and accept your situation more than what they're doing. And certainly you can want that, but that's how we're trying to control the other person rather than you knowing that you've just been out for 2 days, you had sick children, and you just needed some time to get it together. And so you go ahead and you do it. It comes back to, the green hair story. You know, if I tell you that you have green hair, you know, and you know with 100% certainty that you don't, then you're going to think poor John Anthony, he doesn't know his colors or he's colorblind. But you know with 100% certainty that you don't have green hair. But when somebody tells us something that we don't have that 100% certainty, see, then that's when we're vulnerable to agree with them. Because if I have doubts, then and they point out something where they have doubts, then that's what's going to impact me in a negative way more because deep down, I was doubting myself too. So, you know what kind of job you were doing and why the table needed to be wiped off, and you can be okay with it. Or, you know, if you have, guilt about something, that you haven't, you know, worked through and alleviated, um, then you're going to be vulnerable to somebody's comments.
Yeah, and that's probably what it was that I've gotten a lot better at detaching from work. For those of you that are listening, you have to learn how to detach from work. But when I was at work finally, I was like, "Oh, I'm sure there's so much that needs to be done, right?" And I'm the department head. There was some things that were missed yesterday, right? That were my fault because I assumed that my director of ops, who is my second in command, if you will, as far as helping me out, would take X, Y, and Z steps because I had to leave so abruptly on Monday, right? Now, let me be clear. I am not painting a bad picture of him because he is fantastic. He understands the work life balance. He has helped me so much. He still helps me so much. I can go to him if I have any questions or need anything. Uh, it just was my fault for assuming that he would, uh, my fault for assuming he would take X, Y, and Z steps when I had to leave so abruptly, right? And I think that took responsibility for not building more of a treasure map, if you will, and setting him up for success. But maybe everything kind of just rolled into a ball this morning, and that's why I felt the need to say, "I'm here. Just relax for 1 second," right?
Hmm. Yeah. Well, you see, we can make those assumptions, but not everybody, is aware of things that I didn't do, because it's not their normal job to look for
Yeah.
those things. And also, corporations today have a tendency to try to stretch a person as far as they can stretch them to get the most out of them that they can get. And so when you have two people that are working at capacity because of how the tasks have been set up for them, because the corporation is trying to make, they don't want a high payroll. Um, they want to maximize profits for the stockholders. Um, and I'm already working near capacity or at capacity, and then I have to take on somebody who gets sick. Their roles, it's it's going to be a problem. Because I'm not even going to have the time necessarily to be able to do that. And so, whereas when there's little breathing room, then we can absorb things. And yeah, I got your back. Go ahead. See, but the other piece is that you know the traditional roles are that we would ask the mother to take off from work, and not the father. And I'm glad that things are being more fair and equal. We need to step up to the plate as men and not put all that burden on our partners. And but there's still some people that think that you're the man, you should be, it's your wife's job to. No, well, her job, she couldn't go, because she's a teacher, so she couldn't just say oops. And and that's one of the challenges too. And that's why it's for people that are all by themselves, they don't have family to rely on. It can be a real challenge for their careers and or their families, because kids get sick, and you know, you have to tend to them, or else, you could lose them.
Well, that's why I always say, and then I tell everybody that I work with that I'm very grateful because I do work with a team that um, knows that family comes first, and I had to leave, and they backed me up to the best of their ability. And then for those of you couples who are listening, I was in a position on Monday and yesterday where I could take off, and I did so. And we needed to stay home with the kids for a second or third day total today. and my wife volunteered to stay home. And the reason I'm mentioning this because we're listening, we always talk about family, marriage, and partnerships. There's that balance, right? I was able to leave on Monday. On Tuesday, I was able to stay home. Wednesday, tagged her in. Now the kids are ready, healthy after both parents doing their thing, making it work, thanks to the people we work with as well. And we're ready to get back to normal tomorrow. Hopefully, nothing happens in the next 12 hours.
Yeah. And, and you worked as a team, and that's why having two parents makes raising children easier than when you're a single parent, because
100%.
there's nobody that you can tap out and say, hey, can you spell me here, when you're a single parent, so.
Yeah. Yeah. So as we get to 9 o'clock, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling ready. I'm not sure for what, John Anthony, but yeah, because I guess by the time you and I come back here, it's going to be time for 2022, and as somebody as we get to the end, and on a positive note, listen, with the pandemic going on, I like to be thankful for everything that actually did come from the pandemic and during the pandemic. I'm not sure I would have landed in Philly in this current position. And, as crazy and up and down as things were, I'm grateful to have that position and grateful to, or looking forward to the next step. Didn't think I was going to end up in Las Vegas with Jocko Willink and his team. And, and I say that because while we're here talking about COVID and things like that, right? It's just, and I'm sure a lot of you can agree if you're listening, it hasn't all been that bad. It hasn't all been bad, I hope. Right, John? I'm sure it hasn't been all bad for you.
Well, I'm fortunate that it hasn't. I'm also fortunate that I haven't had anybody close to me die, from the COVID. There are people that have lost family members, and they probably aren't able to say that it's been good for them, and I could understand that. So it's relative, and eh, when the when things hit, they don't hit everybody, um, and depending on whether you got hit by it or not, really determines if it's been good. And so I'm happy for you, and I'm happy for me that we have not been impacted in a way that we've lost one or two or several family members. But there are people that have lost several family members, and I'm sorry that they've had to go through what they're going through. And but whether we're on the side where we get hurt, by something in a big way or we don't, how we respond to it is really going to determine if we make it worse or if we minimize the impact that it has on us. And it really comes down to our thoughts and how we see things, and taking responsibility for what we're thinking, what we're feeling, what our attitude is, and what our experience is. Keeping our power and not giving it away to other people, circumstances, or situations. And it's not an easy thing to do. And I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm able to do it 24/7. But the more I'm able to do that, the more I increase the quality of my life. And when I let that slide, then the quality of my life slides. We're all going to have incidents and traumas that happen. It's how we respond to it. That's what really determines who we are and what our life is like.
Absolutely. So as we reach the end of this episode, John, would you like to drop your information?
I can be reached by email at contact@supportivealliance.com, or you can go to our website. It's www.supportivealliance.com.
Copy that. And John and I might be back in 2 weeks. Him and I will discuss offline, and we'll let everybody know because that's like 2 days before Christmas. So we got to figure out what's going on. But John, thank you as always for 3 days before Christmas. I'm sorry. John, thank you for joining me as always. And to anyone listening, we'll see you next time.
Thank you for having me, Ryan.
Of course. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye.